Mr Sefcovic briefed EU ambassadors on Thursday after a week submerged in discussions with Ms Truss, who took over the Brexit brief after Lord Frost resigned in December. RTE Europe editor Tony Connolly reports that the overall atmosphere of the briefing was a much improved tone and atmosphere, but little substantive development. One senior diplomat told RTE, if the British put their minds to it, there is scope for Truss to claim great victory on the basis of the Commission package. The Commission has done all sorts of things they said last year couldn't be done. If the British internally decide they want to bring this to an end, and they look seriously at the Commission package and engage with us, I think there is the potential to make speedy progress. Poland has received yet another fine by the European Commission after it failed to keep its promise to reform its judiciary system. The European Commission has sent Poland formal notice to pay some €70 million in fines for failing to reverse an illegal disciplinary regime for judges, a spokesman said, an escalation in a row between Warsaw and the European Union over democracy. The case is one of many disputes between the EU and Poland's ruling Law and Justice, PiS, party, which came to power in 2015 and has since faced accusations of eroding democratic freedoms. Last October, the top EU court fined Warsaw for failing to immediately halt the work of the Polish Supreme Court's disciplinary chamber pending a final verdict on the scheme. The Commission says the disciplinary system allows for political meddling in the courts and hence violates the laws in the 27-nation EU, as well as in Poland, that establish judicial independence. Despite initially being against Brexit, since taking the helm of the opposition benches, Sir Keir Starmer has come to accept Brexit is done, and that, in his own words, there is no case for rejoining and that we have to make it work. Sir Keir's new ploy to win support from voters can perhaps be summed up by just 3 words uttered by the Labour leader in a recent interview: make Brexit work. Alan Wager, research associate at UK in a Changing Europe, has unpicked Sir Keir's phrasing to reveal what he thinks it really means. Switzerland is going through a Brexit-like step-by-step breakup with the EU. Brussels has been warned as trade negotiations with the non-EU country fade. The EU has pushed for years for a treaty to cap an array of bilateral accords and require the Swiss to routinely adopt changes to single market rules. Talks between Bern and its biggest trading partner broke off in May over concerns about yielding too much sovereignty to the bloc. According to Markus Notter, president of the University of Zurich's Institute for European Studies and former Zurich Director of Justice, Switzerland's bilateral agreement with the EU is increasingly at risk of becoming imbalanced. Ms Truss has laid the ground for a comprehensive change to the dysfunctional Northern Ireland Protocol. The Foreign Secretary and newly appointed chief Brexit negotiator has been submerged in talks with her EU counterpart Ms Sefcovic since last week. Since taking over the brief from Lord Frost, who resigned in December, Ms Truss has championed a comprehensive renegotiation that would stand the test of time. In an official statement, she said, just as all sides rose to challenge of securing peace, let us step up and work with the same conviction, clarity of purpose, and innovative thinking. There is a deal to be done, and a shared responsibility to make it happen. After the Bank of England raised interest rates in December, the pound has steadily climbed to now stand at 1.36 to the dollar and 1.20 against the euro. The strength of the pound can be partly put down to a difference in monetary policy, with the Bank of England being one of the first central banks to raise interest rates. Matthew Ryan, senior market analyst at eBury, said, "We think that sterling is well placed to continue outperforming many of its major counterparts in the coming months. The MPC's near unanimous vote in December makes us increasingly confident that another rate increase is on the way in February, with one of the most aggressive paces of hikes in the G10 to follow on at least a quarterly basis through 2022. Nicola Sturgeon has sparked fury among Scots as she demanded the European flag be flown outside all government buildings every day this year. Meanwhile, the Union Jack flag will only be flown once, on Remembrance Sunday. One angry MSP has called the move a distraction from the real issues facing Scotland. The guidance states, the First Minister has instructed that the European flag is flown from SG buildings. This will be on a daily basis except for specific flag flying dates. Germany has hit its highest levels of inflation in nearly 2 decades, with consumer prices rising alongside it, the country's statistical authority confirmed. Annual inflation over the course of 2021 rose more than 3%. Climbing to its highest point since 1992. Germany's Federal Statistical Office said that after a further price hike for consumers in December, inflation reached 3.1% on average for the year. The EU has confirmed inflation has climbed to its highest level in the history of the Eurozone. Inflation for the Eurozone now stands at 5% for December, up 4.9% from the month before. For the European Union as a whole, inflation is running higher at 5.3%. Soaring energy bills have been by far the biggest driver, with costs increasing 25.9% year-on-year. In a sign of a broadening base to inflation, food, alcohol and tobacco also saw prices rise. Boris Johnson is facing calls from Brexit, backing Tory MPs to give Lord Frost a new role in government as they demand Downing Street gets a grip. Lord David Frost, 56, has been tipped for a return to number 10 by members of the European Research Group in a bid to clean up Downing Street following Partygate. The ERG, who heaped pressure on Theresa May, 65, during her stint as Prime Minister, met with Boris Johnson, 57, on Tuesday to demand the UK's former chief negotiator with the European Union makes a return to government. According to The Sun, the Brexiteer MPs told the Prime Minister they want Lord Frost to be appointed as Mr. Johnson's Chief of Staff to get a grip of the show in Downing Street. One top Tory source told the tabloid, the Prime Minister needs a wartime consigliere. Plans for an underwater power cable linking France and Britain have been turned down, just months after French President Emmanuel Macron sent a blackout threat to the UK. Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng poured cold water on the project that would have linked Britain with France. Mr. Kwarteng rejected that application from investment firm Equind, which was looking to connect the British and French grids to make energy markets more efficient. Last month, Britain's energy regulator launched a new round of investment bids to build subsea cables. But this came after a series of energy threats from the French. Amid a furious Brexit fishing licenses row, French President Emmanuel Macron's government threatened to turn the lights out in the UK. Ms Sefcovic has hinted that the Northern Ireland Protocol negotiations with the UK could be halted by the end of February if there is no progress. Radio Telefisheran have reported that the EU's chief Brexit negotiator Ms Sefcovic is ready to pull the rug from under Foreign Secretary Ms Truss if there is no breakthrough. Ms Truss will travel to Brussels on Monday to agree on a deal on the post-Brexit arrangements for Northern Ireland by the end of February, The Guardian has reported. Mr Sefcovic has told MEPs he is concerned about the impact of the lockdown, breaking party scandal in Downing Street and a potential leadership election. Mujtaba Rahman, managing director of Eurasia Group, says this will complicate matters. Good afternoon from London. Tara Fair. I'll be bringing you all the latest developments on Brexit for the next 8 hours. Please feel free to get in touch with me as I work if you have a story or tips to share. Your thoughts are always welcome. Email tara.fair@reachplc.com. Twitter @TaraFair. During his time as the Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow disrupted Brexit at least 5 times. The 57-year-old was accused of trying to block the UK's departure from the EU. Mr Bercow, who voted Remain in the 2016 Brexit referendum and switched allegiances from Conservative to Labour last year, has maintained he was impartial throughout. Yet, on at least 5 separate occasions, the Speaker appeared to seek to hinder or delay the Brexit process. Read more here. The US President announced Jane Hartley, a former television executive and Democrat donor, as the second ever woman to hold the post as ambassador to the UK. But Mr. Biden took a year to make that decision, and the public are saying this is a sign that he is taking the relationship with the UK for granted as he increasingly shows greater interest in Europe. One Twitter user exclaimed, he sucks. In an online address later this morning, the former Prime Minister will say that whether or not Mr. Johnson survives the Partygate row, his biggest problem is not having a plan for the country's future. The former Labour leader will say, there is a gaping hole in the governing of Britain where new ideas should be. We are living through 3 revolutionary changes simultaneously and are ill-prepared for any of them. Each of them would require major changes to the way we work as a nation. All of them together pose a challenge which is unprecedented in recent history. By Mr. Jessop's predictions, this makes it the fastest growing G7 economy in 2021. Mr. Jessop argues on his blog that while some might dismiss this as a dead cat bounce, a temporary spike in growth amidst a falling economy, after 2020, the results are still much better than expected. The British public are speculating whether Boris Johnson's future as Prime Minister will impact of Brexit. A person in charge of the port of Dover has called for urgent talks with the EU over unsafe checks set to be rolled out at the port. New biometric checks are due to come into force in April, applying to vehicles entering the EU's passport-free Schengen area. Electronic gates means that drivers will be forced to leave their vehicles rather than remain in their cars or lorries, as they are currently able to do with a simple passport check. But Doug Bannister, CEO of the Port of Dover, said that the checks were unsafe, as they were forcing people to get out their vehicles inside of a busy port. Tory MP Neil Hudson has said to ministers he was worried that the Free Trade Agreement, FTA, could see British farmers undercut and undermined by cheap Australian meat imports. Mr. Hudson said, the Australian FTA, dare I say it, like the Ashes cricket series, is a bit one-sided. In favour of Australia, International Trade Secretary Maria Trevelyan said she will ensure there are safeguards in place to protect British farmers and make sure fantastic British produce do not suffer from unfair competition. Boris Johnson is facing calls from Brexit-backing Tory MPs to give Lord Frost a new role in the government as they demand Downing Street gets a grip. Lord Frost resigned from Mr. Johnson's inner circle in December in protest against the government's COVID-19 strategy, high tax policy and green agenda. According to The Sun, the Brexiteer MPs told the Prime Minister they want Lord Frost to be appointed as Mr. Johnson's Chief of Staff to get a grip of the show in Downing Street. One top Tory source told the tabloid, the Prime Minister needs a wartime consigliere. Nicola Sturgeon's major independence missteps have been picked apart, with the SNP standing accused of spending too much time worrying about Brexit. Former Scottish Justice Secretary Kenny MacAskill wrote in The Scotsman that the Scottish government is wasting too much time focusing on the wrong fights, including Brexit and Boris Johnson's premiership. A supporter of Scottish independence himself, he said the time of nationalists would be better spent persuading voters about the perks of his country choosing its own destiny. Read more here. International Trade Secretary Marie Trevelyan is eyeing up global partnerships which will strengthen businesses in every part of the UK. The UK is today hosting the second Africa Investment Conference, in which delegates will discuss ways the UK can work with the continent to boost trade partnerships, benefiting companies both at home and abroad. Ahead of the conference, Mrs. Trevelyan said, the continent has huge economic potential and our continued partnership will help businesses capitalise on investment opportunities, supporting high-value jobs and boost enterprise in every part of the UK. Minister for Africa Vicky Ford added, the UK is deepening our economic ties with countries across Africa. This conference is a fantastic opportunity to bring British and African businesses together to unlock millions of pounds of new investment, especially in clean energy industries in both the UK and across Africa. Good morning from London. I'm Rachel Hagan. I'll be bringing you all the latest developments on Brexit for the next 8 hours. Please feel free to get in touch with me as I work if you have a story or tips to share. Your thoughts are always welcome. Email, rachel.hagan@reachplk.com. Twitter, @RachelHagan.